releases him. I can think of no better illustration of this than this beautiful story by Corrie ten Boom. Many of you may be familiar with her, or even perhaps this story. Corrie ten Boom was a watchmaker's daughter, and during World War II, they hid Jews in their house. They were ultimately captured and sent to the concentration camps. She writes this story after she was released. Her sister died in the concentration camp. She spent the rest of her life essentially toying around, telling people about the goodness of Jesus. And she writes this story. She said this, I was in a church in Munich that I saw him, a balding, heavy-set man in a gray overcoat. He looked nervous. People were filing out of the basement room where I had just spoken, moving along the rows of wooden chairs to the door at the very end of the room. It was 1947, and I had come from Holland to defeated Germany with the message that God forgives. I had proclaimed it with passion. It was the truth that needed to be it was the truth rather they needed most to hear in that bitter and bombed out land, that land war-torn and broken. And I gave them my favorite mental picture. Maybe because the sea is never far from a Hollander's mind, I like to think that that's where forgiven sins were thrown, to the very depths of the sea, I would say. When we confess our sins, I said, God casts them into the deepest ocean, and they are gone forever. The solemn faces stared back at me, not quite daring to believe. There were never questions after a talk in Germany in 1947. People just stood up in silence. In silence, they collected their things. Some tears were shed, but in silence, they left the room. And that's when I saw him, working his way towards me against the others who were silently leaving. One moment I saw the overcoat and the brown hat, and the next a blue uniform. And I saw it. I saw him. It all came back to me with a rush, a flash. The huge room with its harsh overhead lights, the pathetic piles of dresses and shoes piled up in the center of the room, the shame of having to walk naked past this very man. I could see my sister's form, my dear sister, frail, dying, ribs sharp underneath parched skin. Betsy, how thin you were, how much I loved you.